today, what we are going to start is actually, first of all, I will introduce myself. I'm Lanka and I'm lecturer at the Department of University. Who is leading the ethics and risk management part of the subject. Basically, when it comes to subject, kind of a theoretical subject, but actually it's not. It is a kind of practical subject. Right? You feel like it's a theoretical subject. Afternoon time it is very difficult to learn the theoretical subjects. Right now, after having lunch, I thought of it. You have spent with the morning lecture, so it is very difficult to have the theoretical learning. Right? I will make this as a kind of a practical one, right? Because when it comes to risk management, there are so many theories you have to learn. You would read lot of theoretical things, but also when it comes to ethics, you have to learn some theoretical aspects. But as we are going to become accountant, or as we are going to become an entrepreneur, as we are going to become a finance manager, or as we are going to become a CFO, company owner, right? So you need to apply these things, practical scenarios, right? So that's the requirement of the subject, right? So basically, first of all, I'm moving on to the ethics part and then moving on to the risk management part. Now, but you can see the risk management in the board. Why is that? Because your group assignment is coming from this, right? It's allocated 25 marks, right, for the group assignment. So I think how many groups you are having now? Already you are having group size? How many groups?
3-4 batches combined. There are 3-4 batches combined, so
we have to make somehow we have to make groups, right? So that is why I'm not going to make groups. Somehow you have to make 5-member groups. I don't know how you are doing it, but I want the group numbers along with the group members' name before next week. I will make the notebooks available in the LMS, right? So you can drop your group. So when it comes to the first, I'm moving on to the group assignment thing. Then I will move into the because most of you are not there after having lectures, after having the lunch, right? So when it comes to group assignment, right? I will make it as a 5-member group assignment, right? And there is a report also, right? There's a report also, right? So when I'm going to the guidelines of the group assignment, right? So I hope everyone can see. I don't know whether everyone can see, right? So your task is to do a presentation and a report, right? For the presentation, I will allocate 15 marks, and for the report, I will allocate 10 marks. And I will click on the report, right? You can't copy and paste. You can't use the ChatGPT. You can't use the Colombo. After using ChatGPT, I know you can put it to paraphrasing software and you can make some changes. Don't do like that because I will go through with the terminal software and check your report. If you are copying, if you can copy how much 30%, it's acceptable. But beyond that, let's say 90% from your report, then definitely 0 marks. Right? Definitely 0 marks. So for the report, I'm strict on the report. Then the presentation, I'm looking at your presentation skills as well as how you are presenting the theoretical aspects, incorporating with the practical aspects. Right? So those who are coming now, what I'm discussing here is I'm discussing about your group assignments. Right? So I have mentioned that for your group assignment, there should be 5-member groups, right? 5-member groups, and also you have to do the presentation in 15th week, right? 15th weeks, right? Because I will take 8 weeks to discuss the risk management part, right? Then after 15th week, I will take the presentation and the report, right? So that is how it goes. When it comes to written report, right, you need to take a real world example and embedded the things we have discussed as a theory in the classroom to the scenario. Right? For example, when it comes to the this thing, when it comes to the report, you can see I'll take one example from a John Keel's PLC. Right? Every PLC company has a risk management part in the annual report. So you need to take it right from the annual report, and you need to analyze. How you don't have any idea about risk management, I know, right? Just think you have an idea about the risk management. So with the idea of the risk management or with the theoretical knowledge of the risk management, you can check whether any of amendments, any kind of a new thing you have added, right? So how you are applying this theory into the practical scenario. I will explain this when we are going with the lectures, right? So that's what you need to know. You need to find out the PLC company's annual report, and you need to take the risk management part of it, right? And you need to analyze it. That is the requirement for the report and the presentation, right? Right. So if I read the guidelines, right? So this assignment consists of two parts: a written report and presentation. The report is worth 10% of the total grade, and the presentation is worth 15%, per combined grade 25%. Right? For your 100 marks, 25% is coming from the digital file. Right? So the part one, written report, 10 marks. The report should be comprehensive document around 10 pages. I don't want bulky document around 10 pages that covers the following topics. That covers the following topic, incorporate the real world example. That means basically the real world example means you need to take the PLC company's annual report, right? Right. And you need to define the risk. You need to define the risk, but they are having generally when it comes to risk management part, they have mentioned about the risk. Right? What are the risks they are having? Right? How we are going to what is the process they are following? Right? This is the process. Right? This is the score they have given. So with that score, they have categorized their risk. Other broker not adhere to bylaws. Risk rating medium. Right? That company having the risk rating of medium for the other brokers not adhering to bylaws. So they have find out the risk what they are having in the business and they are rating it. Right? And they are mentioning about the risk responses as well. How they have responded to the risk. Right? So when you are analyzing this annual report, sometimes you will find out a new thing that they have not picked. Right? Or new response that they have not mentioned. So that is a requirement. Right? Right? And other way around, other perspective, you are looking about this risk, right? Other risk. Right? So that kind of thing you have to do. So I will explain when it comes to the final part of the risk, when it comes to the after 4 to 5 weeks, I will explain how we are going to do the written report. Right? So at this moment, what you will have to do in the before the meeting, you have to make 5-member groups. I will make a Dropbox LMS. So you have to upload your group members list along with the group numbers. Right? So that's you have to do. Right? Before next week, I will make the Dropbox. So you have to upload it. Right? So again, I'm going to the written report. So you can see the defined equivalence here. So those sort of things. What you have to do, it's clearly mentioned. And the presentation, right? For the presentation, utilize slides consists bullet points and visuals. Include case studies or real world examples to illustrate ethical dilemmas and risk management practices relevant to your chosen industry. Right? So I don't want bulky wordings in your presentation. I want to use the kind of a graphical presentation. Right? So what normally in the university, what people are doing is you have take all the things into the presentation and you are just reading the presentation. Right? That is not the requirement. Right? So if you are doing like that, so the 15 marks will be reduced from 14 to 10 to 5 to 0. Right? Right? So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And submission guidelines, you need to submit the report. So that is the requirement. And upload the presentation and the report both together. One group member can upload the document. Don't submit 5 members, right? Cover your order. Sure නැත්නම් group එකේ ඉන්න 5 දෙනාම upload කරන්න යන්න බෑ. එකෙක් upload කරන්න. Right? 15th week is the deadline. Right? 15th week we are taking the presentation. 14th week I will give you the deadline date. Right? So normally 14th week is the deadline. Right? And the group members 5. Right? 5 group members. Okay. So before going to this group assignment, any question, any changes you need to make for this assignment, I can do this movement. Right? If you want to increase the group members, if you want to make some changes to the group assignment, so you can do. You can talk and tell me, then I can change. 5 members are okay, right?
Previously we have done like that, so it's okay.
Okay, 6 members are okay. Sometimes there are some practical issues, no? So you can keep with that, but don't go for 10 members and 5 members are okay, right? Others? Good, right? Any questions? Any other questions? Great. Right. So that is all about group assignment. I will talk about this group assignment once we have finished the kind of a majority part of the risk management again, right? Okay. Right. Today's topic is very kind of a easy topic, I would say, because it actually embedded for like ethics, right? Right? Ethics. So what do you mean by ethics? The first question, anyone now? When it comes to any subject, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by ethics? Yes, what do you mean by ethics? So before that, if I'm asking, what is your final ultimate goal after doing the SAP degree and the chartered, if you're doing chartered or SEMA, what is your final destination? That's to be a finance manager, that's great. Yeah. See. Okay. Chartered account. After being a chartered accountant, you can have a professional qualification. After being a chartered accountant, finance manager. One would be a CFO. What do you mean? That's it. Chartered accountant. No one. All are CFO. Why? Yeah, lacking with entrepreneurs. How CFO can get a job without entrepreneurs? You need entrepreneurs, right? Anyway, so if you have become a chartered accountant, or if you have become a finance manager, if you have become a CFO, if you have become a kind of entrepreneur, right? We all know, we all want ethics, right? If you are a good human, you want to have a good ethics. So what do you mean by ethics? Generally, ethics, just forget about the professional part, ethics. What do you mean by ethics? Anyone have any idea? Ethics? Ethics thing. What do you mean by ethics? Is it okay to go with English or both the language? Well, that's also about that. All right. Ethics क्या हुआ? Engineering को ethics को engineering क्या? What do you mean by ethics? I don't know. Single name is आचार. Ethics. What do you mean by ethics? Anyone? Kind of a correct answer. Let's simplify it. Simple. Make the life simple.
The generally accepted good things,
General acceptable.
good practices.
I look at the good thing is correct. General acceptable. Ethics. If you want to get it out, come here. Balcony की बोली में हमें लगा इनमें कहा कि लिखना चाहिए इनमें भेज देता है लगा right when it comes to ethics I would say ethics are good thing and bad right and wrong right sometimes we say this is right we say this is wrong that is I'm mentioning as ethics right this is wrong this is right. So what are the examples when it comes like what kind of things we are not supposed to do? Let's say the wrong things. Sometimes it should become good to something, someone's right? Good. Yes. Any good thing to? So good thing. Right thing. Are they are Three times. Three times. Okay. Any other things? So when it comes to the right and wrong thing, it will depend on the people, right? It will depend on the people. Sometimes I feel this is right. Sometimes you feel it is wrong. Right. So for example, as she said, sometimes I feel the smoking is good. Right. 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 Sometimes I feel taking liquor is good to health. Right. So someone can say this wrong. Right. Right. It depends on the people. When it comes to the general ethics. When it comes to general ethics. So basically, when it comes to ethics are the right or wrong things. You can say simple. Right. So let's say when it comes to ethics. Right. So these are kind of a definition for the ethics, right? So don't follow the definitions in your life. Take it very easy, right? Definition වලින් ඉගෙන ගන්න කිව්වොත් ඉගෙන ගන්න බෑ. ඒක ඇඟට දාගන්න. එතකොට මතක ඉන්න. දැන් ඒතකොට චාර්ට් අකවුන්ටන්ට් කෙනෙක් ස්ට්‍රැටජික් ලෙවල් එකට ගියාට පස්සේ ඔයා definition පාඩම් කරන් කියලා ලිව්වොත් පාස් වෙන්න බෑ. Because they are checking the practical scenario. How you are going to address this issue when you become a chartered accountant in a practical scenario? They are. Right? If you are taking the definition and go with the definition, you can't. Right? So ethics are code of moral principles that provide follow with respect to what is right or wrong. Right? What is right or wrong? So when it comes to ethics, anyone say in a law, right? When it comes to laws in Sri Lanka, we have the law. Right? In law, it's enforced by the law. People are saying it's not good to smoke. It's enforced by law. Law එකකින් කියලා තියෙනවා අපිට ස්මෝක් කරන්න එපා කියලා. ජෙනරල් තැන් වල ස්මෝක් කරන්න එපා කියලා කියලා තියෙනවා. ඒක අමතක කරලා කිව්වා. Right? It's enforced by law. To be brave, be kind, it's enforced by law. Generally, when it comes to ethics, it is not enforced by law. Right? It's not enforced by law, but law incorporated moral justice. The law incorporated. Right? In the law, it is included. Right? In the law, It is included, right? This included. So let's say, so when it comes to the moral judgment, right? So let's say how it's incorporated to law. So when it comes to the let's say stealing is it good or wrong? Good or bad? Stealing someone's money. Is it good? Yes. Is it good? Oh, it's wrong. Right? Right? It's wrong. But it is not imposed by law, but the moral judgment, law incorporates. Right? If you steal something, you have to go for jail. Right? You have to go for the jail. No one said don't steal. If you steal, they will take you to jail. Right? Right? Law එකෙන් කියලා නැහැ අපිට හොරකම් කරන්න එපා කියලා. හොරකම් කරන්න එපා කියලා. හැබැයි හොරකම් කරොත් ඉරේට දාන්න. හොරකම් කරොත් ඉරේට දාන්න. So that's the simple meaning of it. Right? Simple meaning of it. Right. The next question is whether the ethics is changing over time. So with the places or with the countries, the ethics are changing. Yes or no? Ethics are changing. Yes. ආචාර වෙනස් වෙනවද? ඒ විදිහම දිනවද? කාලයත් එක්ක නැත්නම් කාලයත් එක්ක යන ආචාර මේ විදිහම දිනවද? කාලයත් එක්ක යන ආචාර වෙනස් වෙනවද? ethics වෙනස් වෙනවද? Yes. Yes or no? Wrong. Answer is wrong. Yes or no? Yes. Right? No. It will depend. It will depend. Right? It will depend. So, for example, let's say in a Roman Empire, right? Roman Empire, slavery is a kind of acceptable. Right? So, they take it as a good thing. Slavery. The Roman Empire. But nowadays, what happened? Change. Slavery is not good. Right? So the ethics is changing over time. Right? For example, the next one is it changing over time? The example is if someone is stealing someone's money, it is bad. But when it's coming nowadays, also it is bad. Right? So it will depend. Right? The ethics are changing or not, it will depend on the situation. We can't say just it's changing with the time. Right? So we call it as when the ethics are not changing over time. Ethics are changing. We say ethical pluralism. Right? Right? If it is ethics are not changing, right? The second one, right? So these are actually, I'm not going to test in your examination. That I want to say, but you need to have some sort of a background about it. Right? That is why I'm taking it. Right? So you don't want to study much thoroughly about what you mean by ethical relativism, and you are going to search the YouTube and take notes. I will not take your paper. Right? So what you have to understand is what is the general meaning of it. Right now we are know what you mean by the general ethics and whether the ethics are changing over. Right? Right? So any questions up to now? Any questions? No? No? You want that? Right. Okay. So now I'm coming to the today's discussion. Right. Up to now, what I'm discussing is kind of a අපි කියන්නේ ෆිල්ම් එකකට කලින් නිකන් ඩ්‍රාමා එකකට කලින් පොඩි එක්කෙනෙක් අර මොකද ඒ ඩ්‍රාමා එකට කලින් ඉස්සරහට එන්නේ පූර්ණ ටික් එක කියන්නේ මේක තමයි මේ විසුක. So today what we are going to discuss is the first one is Holberg's framework. Very important, right? This is coming to your examination. From this point onwards, I am taking these things in your examination, right? Then the next one, content of professional codes, right? Professional code. Fundamental principles and ethical threats, ethical safeguard and conceptual framework. I will take 2 weeks to discuss the ethics, and I will complete the ethics thing, right? So when it comes to the ethics, we have just discussed the general ethics. Those who are coming from what we are doing is we are discussing ethics, right? We are discussing it because I feel like if you are coming to the class late, it is kind of a wrong thing, right? The breach of ethics. So don't do like that next week. I'm not actually allowing you to come to the class after the degree, right? So today's discussion, first one is Holberg framework, and the second one is content of professional codes, right? As I mentioned before, we have discussed the general ethics, right? We have discussed general ethics, what we are having normally. But the requirement is not like that. As the professional, because we are all learning or we become a professional, right? Someday you are going back, they have mentioned, I want to become a finance manager, I want to become entrepreneur, I want to become CFO, something like that, right? So at the end of the day, all these things, all these professions, we call them professions, right? So what we need to have? We need to have the professional codes, professionalism, right? So that we call it single is Murtiya Acharya, right? Professional code, right? So from this point onwards, we discuss about the professional codes, right? Professional codes, right? Professional ethics. And the third point, fundamental principles and ethical threats, right? So as a profession, what kind of a fundamental principles we need to follow, right? What kind of threats we are having as accountants, right? And ethical safeguard and conceptual framework. How we are protecting from those threats, right? How we are protecting from these threats, right? What kind of a conceptual framework we need to follow to escape from this threat, right? So that is the so what we are going to discuss. First one is the Colombo framework. That is a kind of a theory which is built by the Colombo, right? Yeah, ඉගෙන ඉන්න ගමන් පොඩ්ඩක් කල්පනා කරලා හදපු theory එකක්, right? Right. ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් apply වෙනවා ethics වලට, right? ඒක ඊළඟට අපි professional codes වල content එක කොහොමද අපි build වෙන්නේ කියලා කතා කරනවා. It was fundamental principles as a professional people, what kind of fundamental principles we need to follow, and what kind of ethical threats we are having. And when you are performing our job, we will have some ethical threats, right? So then when the ethical threats is coming, what kind of things we have to do to escape from the ethical threats. Okay. So that is the outline we are going to discuss today. So after finishing today's lecture, right? So if you can, let's say, right, because you are writing down, you are applying the professional scenario. So if you can write the answer for the ethical threats which is generating in the practical scenario with your knowledge of the framework, so that is more than enough, right? So that is the final ultimate goal of today's lecture, right? So you can follow this 40, right? Okay, moving on to the framework which is built by a person called Colombo, right? Right. We are going to call it up, right? So it's mentioning about the stages of moral development. It's not talking about the ethics, but we can incorporate this to the ethics, right? Right. They are not talking about the ethics, but we can incorporate this to the ethics. That is why it's actually embedded in your syllabus. It's a more theoretical one, right? Just make it simple, right? Stage 1. So there are 3 stages, right? There are 3 stages, 3 to 7 age, and that means අවුරුදු 3 ඉඳන් 4 වෙනකම්. right? අවුරුදු 3ට කලින් ඉතින් මොකද තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. අවුරුදු 3 වගේ තමයි කට්ටිය තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. right? 3 ඉඳන් 4 වෙනකම්. අවුරුදු 8 ඉඳන් 13 වෙනකම්. ඊට පස්සේ අපි ඕගොල්ලෝ වගේ දැස්ක වලට that's around. Right? So the Goldberg mentioned 3 to 7 age as a pre-conventional age. Right? Pre-conventional age. Right? So don't look at this. Just imagine. ඔයගොල්ලෝ අවුරුදු 3 නේ. year 3 එකේ. හරි වැරදි කියලා හිතුවේ කොහොමද? මේක හරි මේක වැරදි කියලා හිතුවේ කොහොමද? Yes. Let's say if you have a children, so what children are doing, but I want, right? My child is doing what I want. What are you buying? I'm not gonna. The school and the grants. A pardon grant. 3 to 7 years, right? So we are taking the ethics as someone is actually they are pushing us to do, right? It's based on the punishment, right? It's based on the punishment, or it's based on some kind of a rewards. Right? So avoiding punishment, because we want to avoid the punishment, we are following it, right? We are following. We are taking it as a good thing, right? That is a pre-conventional age and the self-interest also, right? මම පහවසේ විශේෂත්වයේ පාස් වෙන්න ඉගෙන ගන්නවා මට බයිසිකල් එකක් ඕනේ. self-interest, right? Self-interest. Right? And conventional 8 to 13 age, right? So we are following good boy attitude, right? And also laws and order morality, right? School එකට ගියාට පස්සේ, right? අපිට කියන හොඳ attitude වලින්, right? Good attitude you need to maintain. You need to worship your parents and you need to know day-to-day work, right? And also some laws in the school, right? School in Lanka, right? Just general, right? Because it's very much important. You guys you need to understand in each stage of your life how you are adhere to the ethics, how you are taking these things as ethics, right? And the last one is post conventional or the adulthood. What we are doing, we are following the principles, right? We are following the principles. We have the social contract, right? Social contracts we have. So that is why we are following the professional code. As a professional, what we need to do? We need to follow the principles, right? So it is already given, so we need to follow accordingly, right? We have social contracts, right? We have a kind of a contract. If you have become a chartered accountant, you need to follow the code, right? So if you are not following the code, then your chartered accountant badge will be, right? So based on the principles and based on the social contracts you are in this age, we are following the ethics, right? Because ethics are, as we learned previously, ethics are not enforced by the law. Right? It's kind of a principles you need to have, right? So that is the Goldberg theory. It is actually there in the scenario, but we are not categorized into 3 parts, right? So what Goldberg done is categorized these 3 things to 3 parts, 3 stages into some kind of a practical scenario, right? Right. Let's see the video.
Goldberg's theory claims that our development of moral reasoning happens in 6 stages. The stages themselves are structured in 3 levels: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. To understand this better, imagine a conflict at school. There is a fight in the schoolyard. Two ninth graders are beating up Tom. Those who watch the fight are at different stages of moral development. Let's see what they do and how they justify their behavior. Stage 1, we make moral judgments based on obedience and punishment. Finn's sense of good or bad is directly linked to whether he gets punished or not. Finn sees what is happening to his friend and wants to help, but he doesn't because he is afraid the teacher may punish him if he gets caught fighting. He asks himself, how can I avoid punishment? Stage 2, we are motivated by self-interest. Mary decides to intervene and help Tom. She knows that she might get punished, but she also knows that she could become a victim herself someday. If she helps Tom now, he might help her in the future. She is asking herself, what's in it for me? At stage 3, interpersonal accord and conformity guide our moral judgment. Betty sees the fight and wants to intervene, but when she realizes that all the others are just watching, she decides not to get involved. She wants others to see that she is a good girl who is conforming with the ethics of the community. She asks herself, what do others think of me? Stage 4, we value authority and want to maintain social order. When the teacher sees the group fighting, she immediately steps in and shouts, stop, fighting at school is forbidden. He feels that, above all, it is important to follow the rules, otherwise chaos breaks out. He feels it is his duty to uphold the rules that sustain a society. He asks himself, how can I maintain law and order? At stage 5, we understand rules as a social contract as opposed to a strict order. Jessie, who walks from afar, is not sure how she feels about this. To her, rules make sense only if they serve the right purpose. Obviously, the school rules prohibit fighting, but maybe Tom deserves to finally learn his lesson. Just yesterday, he punched a young girl from grade 1. She asks herself, does a rule truly serve all members of the community? Stage 6, we are guided by universal ethical principles. All those involved now have to face the headmaster. He first explains the school rules and why they exist. He then clarifies that rules are valid only if they are grounded in justice. The commitment to justice carries with it an obligation to disobey unjust rules. The headmaster's highest moral principle is he believes that all people should learn to understand each other's viewpoints and that they don't feel alone with their feelings. He asks, what are the abstract ethical principles that serve my understanding of justice? At the pre-conventional level, Finn is driven by fear,
Don't talk, huh?
Mary by
Listen to me.
self-interest.
There's a question.
Right or wrong by the direct consequences
So I will ask you the
of
question from now.
themselves and not by social norm. This form of reasoning is common among children. Conventional level, Betty responds to peer pressure, and the teacher follows the rules. Their morality is centered around what society regards as right. At this level, the fairness of rules is seldom questioned. It is common to think like this during adolescence and adulthood. At this conventional level, Jessie knows that things are complicated because individuals may disobey rules inconsistent with their own morality. The headmaster follows a universal ethical idea, a complete disconnect with what society thinks or the rules say. To him, everything is solved through compassion. The right behavior, in his opinion, is therefore never a means to an end, but always an end in itself. Not every person reaches this level. The American psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg based his work on Piaget's theory of cognitive development. In order to confirm his theory of stages of moral development, Kohlberg interviewed boys between the ages of 10 and 16. He analyzed how they would justify their decision when confronted with different hypothetical moral dilemmas. We will now present to you the most famous moral dilemma Kohlberg presented to his students. Let's see what you would do. The Heinz dilemma. A woman was on her deathbed. There was only one drug that the doctors thought might save her. The druggist that made that particular medicine sold it for 10 times the price of the production cost. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, was poor and could not afford to buy the drug, not even with the financial help of his friends. Heinz then asked the pharmacist to sell it to him for half the price, but he refused. To save the life of his wife, Heinz broke into the man's laboratory and stole the medicine. Now tell us, should Heinz have stolen the drug? Would it change anything if Heinz didn't love his wife? What if the person dying was not his wife, but a stranger? Should the police arrest the druggist for murder if the wife had died? Please write your answers and participations in the comments below.
Right. So there's a question. Right. So what will be? Is that person is wrong or right? Right? Tell me. Well, nothing they go arms connecting now, right? සාමාන්‍ය ඩ්‍රග් එකේ ප්‍රයිස් එකට වඩා 10% සාමාන්‍යයක් විතර වැඩි ඩ්‍රග් එක ගුණනවා. ඒ වයිට් ඉන්නවා වෙන එකේ වයිට් අසාත් දෙලා ඉන්න ඩ්‍රග් එක නැතුව යාව ජීවත් කරවන්න බෑ. ඒකට සල්ලි නැහැ. ඒ නිසා අර ඩ්‍රග් ඩීලර් එකෙන් ඉඳලා ගිහින් මට මේක 50% off එකක් විදිහට දෙන්න. එයා රිෆියුස් කරනවා. ඒ නිසා person gilla pharmacy කරලා ඒ බෙහෙත ගන්න. ඒතකොට ඒ ක්‍රියාවලියේ මොනවද කියන ඔයගොල්ලෝ දකින ethical දේවල්. ethical නැති දේවල්. That person who is going to rescue his wife is right or wrong? Right or wrong? To be right. Okay. So why?
Even though like unfair, the seller to sell the product is higher. Patients, I mean like the other person doesn't have a right to confidence in the product. Because like patient.
Correct. So what is the difference of this? Because let's say for the pharmacist, right, it's not enforced by the law to sell this product lower than this price. But we feel like it's kind of an ethical thing to reduce this drug price and give to that person, right? When it comes to the law, it is not actually enforced by the law. Right? When it comes to moral judgment, right, we feel like it's unfair, right? And also when it comes to the person who's going to steal the drug from the pharmacy, right? When it comes to law, it is wrong. When it comes to law, it is wrong. But when it comes to the right and wrong thing, so we feel like it's kind of a correct thing to do because he don't have the money and he want to rescue his wife. Right? So that's why I'm saying that ethics is not enforced by the law. But when it comes to the law, it is incorporated with the moral judgment. Right? Right. So that is what I want to say. Right. So now we are coming to today's topic, the professional course. Right? Professional course. So as we have become a chartered accountant or as we have become a professional of some institute or any other company, right? So we need to follow the professional course, right? We need to follow the professional course. So when you are making the professional course, there are three principles to follow. Sorry, there are three contents to follow, right? Three contents to follow. The first one is you need to have the public interest, right? Public interest, right? When you are going to make the professional course, it needs to be acceptable by public, right? Public වලින් accept කරන්න ඕනේ මේක code එක. So that is the first public interest. Next one is you need to establish the fundamental principles, right? You need to establish the fundamental principles, right? So what kind of principles you need to follow, right? You want to become like this, you need to obey with these things, right? Likewise, principles needs to be there, right? So the next one, conceptual framework that address the threats to compliance and applying safeguards. So now you are having kind of a principles, principles, fundamental principles. As I mentioned before, class එක දෙන්න බෑ එක පැය වාගේ පක්ෂ. It's kind of a principle, right? It's kind of a principle. So there are kind of threats. Ethical threats are coming up. කවුරු හරි පැය වාගේකට පස්සේ આવුත් මම මොකද කරන්නේ? That is kind of an ethical threat to me. What kind of safeguard I am having, right? What kind of safeguard I am having? How I am going to address this using the conceptual framework. So these three things need to be there in the professional code. Any professional code in the world, right? So this is actually mentioned in the IFAC, right? International Federation of Accounting, IFAC, right? So they have mentioned if you are building a principle, if you are building a professional code, you need to have the public interest, right? You need to have the public interest. That means generally you need to accept it, right? Public have kind of interest about this, right? You need to establish the principles. What kind of principles you need to have, right? And third one is if you are breaching one of, let's say 3 to 5 principles, right? What kind of remedies you are having? What kind of corrective actions you are having? What kind of safeguard you are having? How you are going to apply it? What kind of a conceptual framework you are following, right? So these three things needs to be there when it comes to the professional codes, right? Professional codes. So with this, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka have built ethical professional ethics for the chartered accountants and also for the professionals in this field, right? I feel you all are the accounting people, right? For the management people, as I mentioned previously, you are going to become CFOs, finance managers, or someone, right? So therefore, you need to follow this professional codes, right? So they have issued a book, right? I think you have this book with you if you are doing the charter, right? So Code of Ethics 2023, this is the new book, right? Previously there are 2023 to 2018 book and 17 books as well, right? So this is the new book, 2023. The only change is there are some cyber security threats and all actually embedded to this, because nowadays we are coming with the AI, cyber security and all, right? We need to go with, right? So this book, for your expectations, sometimes, right? I don't know whether I can do this, right? Sometimes I will make it available as a, you can use it as a, you can refer the book when it comes to the open book, like an open book examination. So you can refer this book in your examination. I will inform you the latter part of the lectures. I will inform how you are going to do this, whether it is allowed to use or not, right? Sometimes I will give this book as an open book reference book when it comes to examination. So this is the kind of book you need to follow as a chartered accountant. As a chartered accountant, you need to follow this ethics. If you are breach one of these ethics, what will happen? They will remove your badge as a chartered accountant. Right? So this is the book you need to follow. Right. So based on these commonly acceptable things, they have made this book. Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, they have made this book. They have the public interest for this book, and also establishment of fundamental principles. There are some fundamental principles of within this book, and also what kind of a safeguard, what kind of conceptual framework you need to follow to if someone is breaking the fundamental principles, what kind of a thing you have to, what kind of ethical threats you are having, and how you are working with that, how you are managing those ethical threats. So those sort of things they have given clearly. So you need to follow this book if you have become a chartered accountant or if you have become a professional in this accounting field. Right. So that is the important, right? So this is the fundamental principles. So when it comes to the section 110 to 115 of this code book, right? So they have mentioned about the fundamental principles. Section XC line XC Pahalana, they have mentioned about the fundamental principles. So I will go one by one. The first one is integrity, right? Integrity. So what do you mean by integrity? Anyone know? They are in the board, but without layman language, simple integrity. 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 Being honest, yes, correct. Yes,
Doing correct thing when no one is looking.
good. No one is looking at you, you are doing the correct thing. Those who have sleeping life. What do you mean by integrity? Right there. Okay. Integrity. 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 Okay. Generally, when it comes to the integrity, right, you need to become a straightforward. You need to become honest. When you are doing something, you need to become straightforward. You need to become right. Our telling right. So you need to become integrity. Right. To be straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationships. Integrity implies fair dealing and truthfulness. Professional accountants shall not knowingly be associated with reports, communication, rudeness, contains false or misleading information. Right. So you need to work as an integrity person. Right. So for example, when it comes to Sri Lankan countries, I'm not talking about the political things, right? Just for your knowledge, right? So to become this country a good place to live, right? So if all of people who in Sri Lanka can follow these fundamental principles, then this country will become a good place to live, right? So because if you are an integrity person, so you are honest what you are doing. You are a straightforward person. You are telling the truth, right? So then you make a good place to live, right? So integrity is kind of like that. So as a profession, you need to become a straightforward one, and you need to become honest what you are doing, right? In every business relationship and what you are doing in the professional context, you need to become an honest person and straightforward person, right? Straightforward person. So now you feel like this kind of a theory, but when it comes to question, you need to find out what kind of principles they are breaching, what kind of principles they are going to follow. So therefore, you need to have the knowledge about what you mean by the integrity, right? So you need to drag it from the case, right, to write the answer. Objectivity. What do you mean by objectivity? We all have objective, right? Why you are sitting here and spending 3 hours? Why you are talking for 3 hours? Why? Because you are going to learn, right? You want to become a graduate someday, right? You need to become a chartered accountant. You need to become a good professional. You need to become finance accountant, finance manager, right? Objective. We all have objective. So when it comes to the professional, so you need to have the good objective, right? So you don't want to become a biased one, right? And conflict of interest. And if someone is influencing you, right? You can't obey with their orders, right? If they are telling you to do wrong things without looking at your objective, right? So you can't do that, right? You don't want to become a bias, right? Exactly. So that is what I'm reaching my objectivity principle. Right? If I'm become objective, right? I'm giving some money, not money. I'm giving some mark to you, right? Professional competence and due care. That is very easy, right? You need to become a competent person, right? And also you need to have the care about what you're doing. Professional competence means accounting done the accountancy කරන්න බෑනේ අපි හිතමු අපිට කියන final accounts හදන්න කියලා. HR manager කියන financial accounts හදන්න. So he can't do it. Right? As a profession, you need to have the required professional qualification or professional competence. Right? Sometimes, even though I'm a chartered accountant, sometimes people are coming to me and ask to do this valuation. So if I'm not knowing how to do this valuation, so as a chartered accountant, I'm not accepting that job because I don't have the professional competence to do that. Right? So that is the professional knowledge and skill at the level required to perform a job or perform a service what you are going to do. Right? You need to have the professional competence about that. Right? And the confidentiality, very important. Right? Confidentiality, but I feel most of you don't have. Right? So when it comes to audit firms, if you are working in audit firms, you get the training, right? So let's say I'm working in a big company, right? In that company, there's a fraud case happen, right? So I'm usually coming to the hostel or the home, and I'm saying, මේ වගේ දෙයක් වුණානේ මේ කම්පැනි එක මෙහෙම වෙලා තියෙනවනේ කියලා අයින්ට කියනවා. යාළුවට කියනවා. යාළුවා තමයි කියන්නේ. So as a professional, you need to maintain the confidentiality, right? You need to maintain the confidentiality. If you are breaching the confidentiality, it's not legal, right? Confidentiality, right? To respect the confidentiality of information acquired as a result of professional and business relationship, and therefore not disclose any such information to the third parties without proper and specific authority, unless there is a legal or professional right or duty to disclose, or now use the information for the personal advantage of the professional accountant or third parties. Right? So you can't use the information for your professional, your personal advantages. Right? So you need to maintain the confidentiality. Right? As a professional accountant. Professional behavior. Right? You need to behave as a professional. Right? Don't discredit to your profession. Right? As a sub campus undergraduates, so you need to maintain the dignity of this institute. Right? Don't discredit to the institute. Right? That is the requirement. Professional behavior. Chartered accountant කෙනෙක් අපි හිතමු year end party එකක් තියෙනවා. right? දැන් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඔය audit firm වල එන්නේ දන්නවනේ finance එකයි මේගොල්ලෝ එකතුලා ඉන්නේ audit එක කරාට පස්සේ audit එක complete කරලා ඔක්කොම කරලා ඉවර පස්සේ party එකක් වගේ දානවා. පච්චේ එක. So audit කරපු chartered accountant දීලා වැටෙනවා. But that is not acceptable. Right? That is breaching of fundamental principles. Right? So don't do anything discredit to your profession. ඒක තමයි දැන් chartered accountant කෙනෙක් ඉන්නේ කියොත් එහෙම මොකක් හරි වැරද්දක් කරලා විකාරයක් කරලා එතනම chartered accountant remove කරනවා. ඒ ජීවිත කාලෙම අපේ ණය ඊළඟ කාලේ තමයි chartered accountant වෙනවා. Right? So that is you need to maintain your professional behavior as a chartered accountant. Right? So these are the fundamental principles. This is you need to remember. Right? This is you need to remember to your examination. Right? What you mean by the integrity, what you mean by the confidentiality, what you mean by the professional competence and care, what you mean by the professional behavior. Right? What you mean by the objectivity, you need to read. Right? You need to read. Okay? So if you are not remember these words, or if I'm not saying that you need to remember the exact word there, but you need to have the idea. What you mean by the integrity? Just what you mean by the objective. And if you don't have that knowledge, definitely you can't write the answer that I'm going to ask in the examination. Right? So you need to have the idea about this. Right? I know this is not a good time to discuss about the theoretical things as I mentioned before, because you are having the lunch and for a and these are but somehow we have to do, right? Right. The fundamental principles that is you need to remember, and when it comes to confidentiality, sometimes there are some exemptions for the confidentiality, right? Then මට professional ethics fundamental principles වල කියලා තියෙනවා රහස්‍යභාවය රකින්න ඉන්නේ. කාටවත් මොකුත් කියන්න බෑ. දැන් law එකෙන් කියනවා මට වයින් අහනවා මේක කොහොමද උනේ කියලා. මම කියනවා මට කියන්න බෑ fundamental principles වල කියලා තියෙනවා මට කියන්න එපා කියලා. As a professional accountant I can't tell. Because in the fundamental principles they are saying that I can't disclose anything. But there are some exceptions for the confidentiality. Especially there are some exceptions. Disclosure is permitted by law and is authorized by the client or the employer. If it is required by the law or the client is telling you to tell it to someone else, client is actually giving the authorization to disclose it, then you can disclose. Right? You can disclose. And also, disclosure is required by the law. For example, production of documents or other provision of evidence in the course of the legal proceedings. For the legal proceedings, if you are required some information, it's enforced by the law. You have to tell, right? You have to tell. Disclose to the appropriate public authorities or insurance of the law that come to light. And there is a professional duty or right to disclose. As a professional person, you have right to disclose it. Right? Right to disclose. Right? To comply with the quality review of the member of body or another professional body, to respond to the inquiry of investigation by the member of body or the regulatory body, to protect the professional interest of a professional accountant in the legal proceeding, to comply with the technical standards and ethics requirements. Right? For this, I will tell example, professional duty or right to disclose. So sometimes, when it comes to the audit, right? When you are doing the PLC audit, right? Normally, practically what we are doing is we are taking the EV or the trial balance of the PLC company and we are doing the audit for each caption. Right? After finishing the audit, right? Let's say during the audit, I have find out some deficiencies in the audit. Right? So I will tell it to my partner. My partner is the one who is actually looking at the audit, who is filing the audit report. Right? So I will tell that partner there is some kind of a deficiencies are there in the internal controls or somewhere. Right? So then the partner will say, don't worry about that. Normally this is happening in this company. I'm doing this audit for 7 years. Right? So then you just ignore it and finalize your report and they have given the opinion, the good opinion. The financial statement are good. They have given the opinion. So after let's say 1 year or 2 years, so monetary board is calling to monitor your financial statement. Normally in Sri Lanka, all the as we know, all the PLC companies need to audit. Right? They have to do the external audit. That is requirement by law. Right? So all the PLC companies are audited by reputed audit firms. Right? So after doing this audit, so they have expressing an opinion about the financial statement. I will say it's good, it's bad, like qualified and unqualified likewise, they have given the opinion. But there are organization called Sri Lanka Accounting Monitoring Board. What they are doing is they are monitoring the things that have completed by the audit firm. Right? දැන් මම අර කලින් කිව්වා වගේ audit firm එකේ partner CFO ඉනම් දැන් හිතන්න මම audit firm එක මම CFO කෙනෙක්. මෙයා chartered accountant කෙනෙක් වෙලා එනවා මගේ company එක audit කරනවා. අපි යාළුවෝ දැන් අපි student මෙයා අපි අඳුරනවා. ඒ නිසා මගේ මොකක් හරි තියෙනවා නම් පොඩ්ඩක් අර ගන්න කියලා audit report එක දෙනවා. But when it comes to monitoring board, they are checking it. Right? They are checking whether these things actually happen. Right? Actually correct. The opinion they have given by the auditors, it is actually correct. Right? So when it comes to monitoring board, so all the auditors needs to be there and the monitoring board people also there. So they are checking your account. Right? So in that position, if you feel like you need to disclose this to protect your profession, you can disclose it. Right? You can disclose it. Likewise, if something is going beyond and harmful to your profession, you can disclose it. Right? So that will not breach the confidentiality. Right? So in 3 aspects, you can breach the confidentiality, or there are some exceptions for the confidentiality. First one is it is required by, authorized by the client, or it is enforced by law is actually telling you to tell these things, and also It is your professional duty to disclose it, right? It is your professional duty to disclose it, right? With these three exceptions, you can breach the confidentiality. I don't say breaching; it's a kind of exceptions for the confidentiality, right? Right. So this one also handshake in exception, right? As a case study, right? So don't expect the question like this. What are the three scenarios that you can have an exception for the confidentiality? No, it's coming with the case study, right? In your examination and in your level. අරක මොකද්ද මේක මොකද්ද ethics කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? What do you mean by ethics? No, never. Right. Right. Okay. So now we have discussed about the fundamental principles. So if you remember what we have discussed when it comes to the professional code principles and fundamental principles, public interest, then the fundamental principles. So now we are completing the fundamental principles. Then we already have fundamental principles. So if you breach the fundamental principles, what kind of threats we are having? What kind of threats we are incorporating when it comes to the fundamental principles? First one is self-interest, right? Self-interested. And also when it comes to threats, right? Threats can be categorized into two parts: professional accountant in business and professional accountant in practice. What is the difference? Professional accounting in business, accountant in business, professional accountant in business. I would say CFO. CFO is a professional accountant in business, right? I would say audit partner, professional accountant in practice, right? Right. Professional accountant in business කියන්නේ business එකක නැත්නම් CFO කෙනෙක්, right? Finance manager කෙනෙක්. එයා business එකේ accountant. Professional accounting in practice means he's doing some audit of the company, right? Partner level, right? So they are the persons who are doing the audit or the audit manager, professional accountant in practice, right? So when it comes to the threats, so we can categorize basically into two parts: the threats which is incorporated to the professional accounting business, and also threats which is incorporated to the professional accounting practice, right? So moving on to the professional accounting business, what are the threats, right? The first one is self-interested, right? Self-interested, right? Self-interested. So what do you mean by self-interest?
By doing the thing, we can get a benefit.
Yes, very good. Yes. What do you mean by self-interest? Self-interest. People vision, self-interest. Self-interest. Self-vision. Self-interest क्या है? Why? Self-interest. So for example, I'll take a practical example. Right? That, there's a one company called Lanka Private Limited in Sri Lanka also there. It's a kind of a company where in India, right? Origin is in India. Lanka PLC is in Pilihan, I think, right? So Lanka PLC, Lanka Private Limited is not PLC. What they are doing is they are making some chairs and certain way Lanka going in famous. They are the bro, I can take over here. So in the Lanka in I think 2015 or 15 or something, right? There's a rule came that you need to store the vegetables in a plastic bucket, right? As I remember, the Mr. Johnston Prandu type, he has implemented kind of a thing that you need to store the vegetables in a plastic thing, right? So that thing actually taken by the newcomer, right? They have taken that order, right? They have built plastic kind of a plastic thing, right? So what happened is after I think 2015 the government changed, right? So then that policy changed, right? Nilkamal already built the plastic cage, but the policy is changed. Now no one is responsible for that plastic cage. They will not pay. The government will not pay because it is a policy of the previous government. Right? So now what happened to Nilkamal? So they have the letters and all. The government promised to give this much money, right, for this project, right? But they have booked a kind of a provisions as a receivable, kind of a receivable in their books, big receivable, right? Big receivable in their books. Right? So when it comes to this, now they are having a receivable, but actually there's a no probability that this money is coming to the government. කවදාවත් සල්ලි හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. අය එහෙනම් අපෝ ඒ ආණ්ඩුවෙම එන්න ඕන. ඒ ආණ්ඩුව මෙල්ල ඒ අගතිය එහෙම වෙලා එන්න ඕන. There's a no probability, but they are taking as a receivable. They are keeping this for so long, right? Why they are not actually taking it to the BNL? Because if you are taking this to the BNL, what will happen as a what will happen? Their profit will drop. Actually, it will make some losses, right? So if the losses is making, what will happen? For the sales agent, for the finance manager, all the bonuses will be vanished. That is why they are taking this as a receivable, right? Right. The finance manager, who is a chartered accountant, is deliberately taking this as a receivable. Why? If he knows if he take this as a P&L thing, the profit will goes down, right? Actually, it is very difficult to recover that profit in this next few years, right? Then this bonus will lose, right? So therefore, he is keeping this as a receivable. That is reaching the self-interest rate, right? Self-interest rate, right? Self-interest is kind of a threat that he is having, self-interest. So what kind of a fundamental principles he is breaching? No, that is a threat. No?
Yeah.
What is the principle he is breaching? So we have 5 principles.
Objectivity.
Yes, very good. Objectivity, right? So objectivity is breaching, and also because of the self-interest rate. Because of the self-interest rate, he is breaching the objectivity, right? Right. So that is what the practical scenario is all about, right? So you need to understand that, right? Right. Self-interest is financial interest, loan and guarantees, incentives, compensation, arrangement, personal use of corporate assets, external communication, commercial pressures, acceptance of gift, right? Self-interest, right? Self-interest, right? ඔයාට දෙනවා අපි ගත්තොත් දැන් ගවර්න්මන්ට් ඕගනයිසේෂන් එකක් ගත්තොත් ඔයාට වාහනේ දෙනවා ගෙදර නැගෙන. ඒ නිසා මේවා report කරන්න එපා. Self interest, or interest එකක් තියෙනවා ඒ නිසා මේවා කරන්න. Self interest, right? If you are getting something, right, that is why you are having interest on that one, right? If you are getting something from someone, you have some interest about that person, right? Likewise, if you are getting something from your company, you have a kind of a self interest of your company, right? ඔයා කැමති නැහැ ඒක නැති කරගන්න. So that is the self interest. Self review threat. So what do you mean by self review threat? Self review threat. Self review. Self review. There's a singular phrase for this also. Self review. Self review. What do you mean by self review?
Reviewing the work done myself.
Correct. For example, let's say audit firm, right? So I'm the owner of one company. I have outsourced my company's working to the audit firm, and they are preparing my financial statement, and also they are auditing my financial statement. Right? Self-review. Right? So there are single phrase for that. Right? Right? Mamma karla mamma barna. Right? Mamma hodai ki. Self-reviewing. Right? My own words. Evaluation of a judgment by the accountant who made the judgment for the member, the same organization. Business decision being subject to review and justification by the same accountant responsible for making those decisions or preparing the data supporting them. So I will make another kind of a practical example for this. So there's a company called the name Thomas Cook or something, right? The leader company, right? So in that company, there's a finance manager, right? So that finance manager, what he is doing is, he's having all the authorization for all the works he's doing, right? Let's say when I'm going to pay for goods, right? He has the authorization, right? Authorization. What he's done is he takes some money from the company. Let's say 10 million out of the company, and he's recording it as what? Recording it as cash. They have to get the cash. Then cash credit, right? He's debit this to the expenses. He's divided this amount into small expense categories. Let's say 10 million into 100 parts, right? Let's say 1,000. As a 1,000 part, he's debited it to the expenses, right? Debited it to the expense, and take all the money back home, right? Back home. So no one can find out, right? Why? He knows the material level of the auditor. I think you know the material level, right? Material level කියන එක දන්නවා කියලා මම හිතනවා. Material level එක කියන්නේ මගේ decision එකට affect වෙන level එක. Decision එකට affect වෙන level එක. අපි උදාහරණයක් ගත්තොත් මම සරලව කිව්වොත් auditing වලට යන්න නැතුව ඉතින් ඕගොල්ලෝ යනවා කියලා අසාදයෙන් පදින්න. මනමාලිය බලන්න. මනමාලිය බලන්න ගියාම මගේ decision එක ගන්න මම මනමාලිය ලස්සන නම් පොන්නේ දිගලා මම පදිනවා. That is my decision criteria. That is my material level. Right? එතකොට මනමාලිය කියන පොත්තේ මම හරි එකක් කළා කියනවනේ ඒක මගේ decision එකට affect වෙන්නේ. So that is the material level. If something affected to your decision criteria, then it is we say it is material. Right? එතකොට ඒ finance manager දන්නවා material level එක මොකක්ද කියලා. Right? So then what he's done below the material level, he debited these expenses to the PL. Right? එතකොට auditor කවදාවත් ඒක check කරන්නේ නැහැ. auditor අහුවෙන්නේ නැහැ. So that's self review, right? He has all the power, right? He's making some false data, right? So that is the self review trade. All the documents he is reviewing, all the documents he is making, right? Self review. He is making the documents and he is reviewing the documents. Self review trade. Any question? Accountant promoting question or opinion to the point where objectivity may be compromised. Furthering the employee's cost aggressively without regard to reasonable of statement made, furthering legitimate goals of employee organization would not generally create an adequacy trend. Right? And also the next one is familiarity. Right? Very easy, right? So these are very easy. Familiarity, family, right? You have the family members, kind of a very close relationship you are in. Right? Because of this close relationship, you are having a trend. යාළුවින්ද ඔය දෙන්නම යාළුවින්ද අර රංජන රාමනායකයන් මේ ඔක්කොම යාළුවෝ. So that is family, right? යාළුවින්ද දඩුවම් කරන්න බෑ. Right? So one minister recently got jailed, no? I think only 1 month. He will come back because of this family trend. Right? Likewise, in the company perspective, right? So if you are having a close relationship with people, right, it will arise the right? Wrong association of business contact. Intimidation. Accountant not acting objectively because of actual or perceived pressure. Right? So it is a kind of pressure, right? ඔයා මං කියන එක කරේ නැත්නම් ඔයා ඊළඟ දවසේ ගෙදර යවනවා. right? මම company owner, right? Company owner මං කියන finance manager you need to make this company profit like that. Likewise, you need to take the expenses into the this month. Likewise, you can make the window dressing bill for the financial statement, right? And make it profit, right? If you are not do this, what I will do? I will dismiss you, right? ඒ නිසා මම බයට finance කරන්න හදනවා. So that is intimidation threat, right? Threat of dismissal from employment, influence of dominated personality, right? So if the president says, I will dismiss you, then people are coming to work, right? All the people are actually, they are doing some, nowadays university also closed because of the non-academic strike, right? So the president is waiting, and last point, he will tell, if you're not coming to the work, I will dismiss you. Then people are coming, right? Right? So that is a very big issue in Sri Lankan context, right? Because most of the Sri Lankan context, people are dominating, right? People are dominating. One person is dominating, let's say, a large amount of people. Right? So that is a kind of common trait in the Sri Lankan context. Right? Right. So these are 5 traits we are having, which is affected to your principles. So we have discussed about the principles, what we need to follow. Those are the principles, right? We need to follow. Those are the principles. So these are the threats. We are breaching those 6 principles. May threats නිසා තමයි මගේ principles අනුගමනය කරන්නේ නැත්තේ. I'm not following those principles because of these threats. I'm having a close relationship with this. What is your name? Ruksha, right? Right. I'm having a close relationship with the Ruksha. So I'm not going to establish my principles. I'm not going to behave. I will take some drink with the Ruksha, and I will behaving like. So I'm not obeying with the professional behavior, right? Because I'm having the familiarity, right? I'm having a close relationship with Ruksha. Likewise, these are the threats. So now you can understand the connection. Because of these threats, you will be breaching the fundamental principles, right? You will be breaching the fundamental, right? So now we know what are the fundamental principles, what are the threats, right? What are the threats? Take your phone. So let's have a break. How many meet? What's your last one? What's your last one? 50. Okay, let's have 15 minutes. How 250? 230. There are like group other right? 44 is Colombo. Group fast other. Central Bank training in the government will government will management training. The management training was the but exam person no. Our training is famous for you. Officially famous for. Then may one of the types of thing. Thank you very much. Yeah, great.
අවදානෙන් ඉන්නේ මේ අරගෙන කවුරුද ඒ අද උදේට
syllabus itu berapa? Ada syllabus ada no? Kalau syllabus ada apa?
So they are taking foreign syllabus. Exams they are changed. Foreign syllabus December 5 June नेती. इसी पे जून का
syllabus itu ada no? Ada lah.
इसी पे जून नेती.
Invest union. Temperature. Forensic accounting ada? Commercial itu. Ya, saya yang partner, company itu forensic accounting. Ini apa nama? AI. Cyber security. Kan normal chartered accountant job nih. That's very good. Right. Start right. Okay. So what we have discussed till now is we have discussed the fundamental principles and the trade. Right. So until your friends coming, I have just if you are ready, right? now you are doing, most of you have stopped the charter, right? Because of the degree to get the exemptions. Right? 2025, as you all are aware, the new change is coming up. The syllabus change is coming up. Some new avenues are opening up. So if you are going with the degree only, it will not workable. Right? So something you can do like forensic accounting, cyber security accounting, right? So likewise, if you can go with those subjects, it is better in future, right? Because there are so many job opportunities for forensic accountants and the chartered accountants who have got kind of a IT knowledge. The normal chartered accountants, they can't survive in this nation because it is actually changing, rapidly changing. The forensic accounting is something very good area in this country. When it comes to not only Sri Lankan context, actually Sri Lankan context is emerging, right? It's not only coming up, but when it comes to the world, right? When you compare with the normal accountant or the chartered accountant in the world, right? When you compare with the salaries of the normal accountant, the forensic accountant is very high salary. They are paying very high level of salary for the forensic accountant, right? Actually, the forensic accounting is a kind of a branch of the accounting. It's a kind of a trendy branch of accounting, right? Without knowing accounting, you can't become the forensic accountant. But forensic accounting field actually now emerging. Right? More than the chartered accountant, the forensic, I'm not saying the chartered accountant, more than the normal chartered accountants, with the knowledge of the forensic accountant, if you have become a chartered accountant, then there's a kind of a big opportunity to all ahead. So those areas you need to research and work. So ඉගෙන ගන්න කිව්වොත් නෑ. දැන් හිතුවත් මේ ඩිග්‍රී එකකට චාර්ජ් කරාම හරි කියලා හරි නෑ. ඔය කලින් නම් මම කියලා දෙනවා A level කරද්දී අපි කියනවා ඩිග්‍රී එකක හොඳයි. ඒක ඔක්කොම හරි කියලා. If you are done with chartered, not finished. You need to search the emerging areas. Next one is the cyber security, right? So most of the time, cyber security context is coming up, right? There are so much of threats is coming in cyber security. When it comes to normal accountant, cyber security is very, and also the sustainable reporting, FS1, FS2, if you are aware, in 2025 onwards, actually it will implement, right? Sustainability, carbon emissions, and the climate change, how we are going to account for the climate change, right? Now it's the kind of a trendy subject, right? And the carbon emissions, when it comes to the companies, how we are reporting the carbon emissions, right? And sustainability, right? Although the sustainability is there, but new standard is coming up for sustainability. Right? So you need to report accordingly. Right? So you have to aware about those things. Right? I think in the December chartered examinations, they will check the sustainability. So there are so many changes will happen in the chartered exams also because it is rapidly changing. You have to do those exams along with the degree, right? Because in the government universities as well, they are having the same exemptions what you are having. This comes to Galle, they are having the strategic level exemption. They are having the ACC exemption. They are having the CMA. Only the final level they have to do. Only final level case study they have to do. Likewise, there are so many exceptions because you have to fight with those people. Without having those kind of knowledge, it is very difficult to fight with those people. Right? නිසා ඒ knowledge උත් ඔක්කොම share කරගන්න ඕනේ. මේකත් එක්ක fight with this. So you need to familiar with those knowledge. Right? Because it is rapid. Now the environment is rapidly changing. AI is coming up. Right? So nowadays, we don't want to have a chartered accountant or kind of expert to analyze the financial numbers. Right? They can put it to the ChatGPT or the Google bar. They will analyze and give you the results. I don't know if you are aware about the EY, I think EY London or somewhere, so they have hired the robots to do the audit. They have built a robot to do the audits, general auditing things, the vouching and all. If you know the vouching, just look at the invoices and find out there are any deficiency. The general works, not the decision making thing. So then people who is doing that work will lose their job. Now we can't see the bookkeepers, right? One of the trending job in the accounting field in those days, bookkeeping. Right? Bookkeeping. There are, I think, in the early 2000, right? There is a PR path for the bookkeepers as well. Now, no more there. Bookkeepers are no more there. If you have a primary knowledge of accounting, you can put the numbers into the system, then system will generate the financial report. So that is a requirement now. Because this is an emerging area. And also the engineers also come into the financial sector. Right? They also do the SEMA and come into the financial sector. Right? So sometimes CFO will become, sometimes the companies are ready to hire. You have the charter, and if you are a lawyer, then companies pick you. Let's say there are two people. One is chartered accountant, one is chartered accountant along with the lawyer. Company will hire chartered accountant with the lawyer. But why? They want more outcomes. Therefore, you need to follow those things and aware about the limit, right? So that is not part of the question, part of something, right? Well, right. So now we have discussed principles and what are the threats which is breaching these principles, right? So now my principles are breaking, right? So what can I do? So that is we are discussing the conceptual framework. How we are going to address the ethical issue, right? Ethical issue. That means if you are having a threat, self-preview threat, how we are going to address it, right? Generally, it is impossible to define every situation that creates a threat to the compliance with the fundamental principles and specific the appropriate action. So it is very difficult to say, right? You need to follow this, you need to do this. Right? There is no common principle, but you have to follow the conceptual framework for that. There is a kind of a conceptual framework, right? I can't say you need to do this, but I have a kind of a frame, right? I need to follow a framework, right? So when it comes to this framework, right? Right. When it comes to framework, so I will divide this framework into three parts. Right. First one is you need to identify the threat. Right. What kind of a threat I'm having. Right. Whether I'm having the self-review threat, whether I'm having the family threat, you need to find out the threat. Right. And you need to evaluate the identified threat. You need to evaluate. Right. Then you need to address the threat. Right. You need to address the threat. Right. So first thing, let's say I have identified a threat. Let's say I have identified I am having a self-review threat. Right. So then we need to evaluate the threat. Right. So evaluation can be categorized into three parts. Right. Generally three parts. Right. So sometimes this threat will not the kind of significant threat. Right. Lokuda Balapan is not significant threat. Right. Not a significant threat. Right. Not a significant threat. Right. And the next one is it's kind of a more than not significant, but it's middle of the significant and insignificant. It's we can say rare chance, right? Right? Rare, right? Not it's between the significant and not significant, right? Then next one is significant, right? Significant, right? So we have identified that. So I'm having a family trait, right? I'm having a family trait. Then I want to evaluate it, whether this threat is a significant one, it's a middle of the significant and insignificant one, right? Or not significant, right? So how we are analyzing it? Let's say I'm having a let's say I'm having a intimidation trait. That means what we mean by intimidation? Someone is pushing me to do this, influencing me, right? But again, like make I will dismiss you from the job. Right? Intimidation. Right. The first one is now I'm having a trait. I have identified the trait. Then I want to evaluate it. Evaluate it. Now I'm trying to find out whether this trait I can remove by telling this to one who's telling me if you are doing this, I'm not keeping you in this job. Then I can inform him this is what happened if I'm doing this, right? Likewise, you can talk with that person and clear this trait with that person. We can say it is not significant, right? You can illuminate the trait by talking with that person and by having some sort of a agreement. Then we say that that trait is not significant, right? Not significant. The next part, then that person is not agreeing with me. Is again saying that you have to do this. Right? So then I can go for the second option. Right? I can tell this to my higher management, board of directors, right? Or let's say external auditors, like that. I can say, right? So if they don't address this, then it will become a significant threat to me. As a professional accountant, I am having a significant threat. What I can do? So no one is addressing my concern. So I have no option. What can I do? I will decline my job. I will decline the things he's asking me to do. Right. So that we suggest in the significant stage. Right. In the significant stage, is if no one is asking my trade, I have to do it. Then that trade I will categorize as a significant trade. So if it is a significant trade, so there is no other option. I have to decline my job. Right. මම job එකෙන් අයින් වෙන්න ඕන. Right. ඒ කියන්නේ මම ඒ perform කරන දැන් මට profit එක වැඩි කරන්න කියනවා. මම profit එක වැඩි කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒවත් කරන්න පළවෙනි option එක තමයි මට profit එක වැඩි කරන්න කියලා කියනවා management එක. Right. Management එක කියනවා මට profit එක වැඩි කරන්න. ඊට පස්සේ මම කියනවා මෙහෙම කරොත් මේක වැරදි කියලා මම management එකත් කතා කරනවා. Right. With that agreement මට shape කරගන්න පුළුවන් management එක නැත්තම් ඒගොල්ලන්ට අවබෝධ කරලා දීලා මේක shape කරගන්න පුළුවන්. We categorize it as a not significant. Right. අපිට shape කරගන්න පුළුවන් not significant. හැබැයි management එක තහන්නේ නැහැ මම කියන එක. ඒගොල්ලෝ කියනවා push කරනවා. So then I can go to the board of directors or I can go to the external auditors and tell this to them. If they are not asking what I'm saying, then it will become a significant threat. No one asks me, no one is helping me. It will become a significant threat. So if it is become a significant threat, what I can do? And decline my job. Right? Right? So that is how we are categorizing the threats. Right? So that is why we are evaluating threats and we are addressing the threats. Right? So in your examination question, so the examiner will ask what kind of an ethical responsibility as a, let's say, that case study is built in a chartered accountant called Sama. Right? So the examiner will ask, evaluate the ethical responsibility of Mr. Saman when it comes to the professional course. Right? It is common professional course. So you need to what? You need to work with the case study. So when you are working with the case study, you can follow 4 steps. Right? The first step is you need to identify the threat. Right? You need to identify the issue. What kind of issue is there? Management is saying you need to increase the profit. So that is the issue. Right? That is the business issue. That is the first step. Right? Identify the issue. Right? Identify the issue. Right? That is first one. That means when it comes to the question, sometimes as I mentioned before, management asks me to uplift the profit. Right? That is my issue. Right? Identify the issue. Then second thing you need to look at what kind of an ethical threat I'm reaching. That is the second thing, right? What kind of an ethical threat I'm reaching? Ethical threat. Ethical threat I'm reaching. Right? That is better. Right? Now I know the issue. Now I know the threat I'm having. Right? If the management is saying me to up the profit, what is the threat I'm reaching? Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you use the digital screen? We cannot see the whiteboard which you're using.
Sorry.
Intimidation.
Sorry for that. So as I mentioned before,
No, sir, thank you.
You need to follow 4 steps when you're approaching a question, right? The first one is identify the issue. Identify the issue. Right? Identify the issue. The first one is identifying the issue. Right? The second one is you need to identify the ethical threats which is incorporated in this issue. Ethical threat. Right? Ethical threat. Right? Ethical threat. Now we know the threat. As I mentioned before, what is the threat? Intimidation threat. You can say objectively as well. Right? Sometimes not one. It will embed with 2 or 3 threats. Right? Now we know the ethical threats. Then third one is you need to check whether what is the fundamental principle I am breaching because of this ethical threat. That is the third one. Fundamental principle. Fundamental principle. Right? So now I know the issue. Now I know the threat. I know the fundamental issue. I'm breaching. Next one is you need to give the step-by-step solution. Step-by-step solution. Step-by-step solution. So what do you mean by step-by-step solution? That's what I have discussed. Right? That's what I have discussed. Right? So your issue or your threat, let's say I will categorize into 3 parts. If it is not significant, right? If it is not significant, that means you can talk with the management and you can solve it. Right? So that is the solution you can have. Right? And if it is between the significant and non-significant, that is in this point, right? If the management is not asking your request or not agreeing with your agreements, right? So then you can go for the board of directors, right? Or the higher level of management. Right? So and also if in that point also it is not workable, then it will become a significant risk, right? It will become a significant threat. Then what you can do? Can decline your work, right? You can decline your work. So these process need to be there in your answer. So when you are writing the answer, this 4 process you need to follow. First paragraph you need to address the issue in the case study. As I mentioned before, management is asking me to rectify my profit, right? That is the issue. Then I want to know what is the ethical threats you are having, right? The third one, what are the fundamental principles which is break because of this ethical threats? So now I have constructed somewhat. Now I want to address how we are going to address this issue, right? What are the solutions? That we call it as conceptual framework, right? Addressing the threat, right? Conceptual framework. So here, what I have discussed with you, right? Addressing the threats, what you can do, eliminating the circumstances, creating the threats, right? As I mentioned before, you can have the agreement with the manager. If you have a family threat, right? Right, you can shift to another division, right? Just for example, first thing, already මුත්සා කරනකොට threat එක arise වුණු තැන eliminate කරනවා. Right? I'm trying to eliminate the circumstances creating the threat. Right? The next option is applying safeguard where they are available or capable of reducing the identified threats to an acceptable level. Right? As I mentioned, though sometimes if the management is not agree with me, then I can use some sort of safeguards, right? Internal safeguards or the management safeguards you can use, right? And the final thing is you can decline for ending the specific professional activity, right? Professional activity. So these three things you can do if there is a threat arise. This is how you are addressing the. Is it clear? Clear? Yes? Okay. So these are the safeguards. That means I'm discussing about the middle of the 3 points, right? So safeguard created by the profession, legislation or regulations, safeguards in the workplace for the accountant business, right? Samarana is meeting safeguards, Samarana workplace again, safeguards of the team, right? අපිට threat එකක් ආවම අපිට ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න නීතියෙන් අපිට තියෙනවා. බලයක් නීතියෙන් එක මේවා දීලා තියෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව කම්පැනි එක ඇතුලේ අපි ගත්තොත් internal controls තියෙනවා. Right? Manager කියනවා ඔයා සයිට් කරන්නකෝ මේක යවන්න. But there are internal control procedures. I can't do. It will safeguard me. Right? So those are the safeguards in the workplace. So let's see the examples. Examples for the ethical safeguard created by the professional legislation and or regulation. Educational training and experience requirement for entry into the profession. Right? When it comes to chartered accountants, so you have to complete for the examination along with the training, right? Continuous professional development requirement, corporate governance regulation. There are you have learned, I think, the corporate governance regulations are there, right? You need to have the non-executive directors, right? Independent directors, right? In your board to have the board balance, right? And professional standards you are having. Professional standards you have. When it comes to this book, ethical principles. So you are having the kind of a standards. Professional or regulatory monitoring and disciplinary procedures, right? So you can tell to the CA Srilanka if let's say another chartered accountant in the business, let's say the CFO is a chartered accountant, right? And also you are the auditor, you are the, let's say you are the executive, you are also a chartered accountant, right? So if he's telling you to breach some sort of ethical principles, right? Then you can go for the CA Srilanka and tell. They have they can do that actions as well, right? Because they are having the professional body, they can complain to the professional body. Right? So those are the professional safeguards, and also company safeguards. Right? Within the company, you are having safeguard, right? Employers oversight system, right? Then calling you again manager, මේක වැරදි විදිහට හදන්න කියලා. Financial statement එක වැරදි විදිහට හදන්න. But financial statement is oversight by the board of directors. Then I can't do. I have safeguard with some sort of internal controls. Right? Employee ethics and conduct programs. So you are having a good ethical background, right? Good control environment in your company. Recruitment procedures, strong internal controls. Right? As I mentioned before, if you have a strong internal control procedures in your company, no one can do fraud easily, right? So it will safeguard you, right? Make a thing in the matter because there are good internal control system. If I do this, then they will catch me, right? Leadership, appropriate disciplinary process, policies, timely communication, training and education of employees, whistleblowing provisions, right? Whistleblowing කියන දස. ඔයගොල්ලෝ අතල ඉඳගෙන එක්කෙනෙක් කාලා මට කියනවා මේ ළමයා මෙහෙමයි. whistleblower. ඔයගොල්ලෝ report එක ලියලා දෙන්නේ chat GPT එක ලියලා eternity එකට අහු වෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්න ලිව්වේ මෙහෙමයි කියලා එක්කෙනෙක් කියලා මට කියනවා. That is visit code. Right? Consultation with another professional accountant. You can consult with another professional accountant. Then ඔය දෙන chartered accountant නම් ඔයාලට ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආවොත් මෙයාගෙන් අහන්න පුළුවන් මම මොකද්ද කරන්න. That is also safeguard. Right? So these are the safeguards which we can follow if we are having an ethical case, right? If we are having an ethical case, right? So now we have completed all things which today I want to discuss with you. Now you have, right? So this is a classroom discussion. So I will give 10 minutes to point the important things of this discussion, and you have to present. I will take some volunteers, right? And you have to present what your findings about this case to the class, right? So I just read the question for you. Draft financial statement for World Tea PLC for the year ended 31st March 2002 have been prepared, and the statement of profit or loss shows a sharp drop in operating profit compared to the previous year. This has a knock-on effect on operating cash flow in the statement of cash flows. The directors of World Tea PLC are of the opinion that this is the result of major customer suffering, financial difficulties together with a general reduction in the level of trade in the second half of 2001. They are, however, sure that this was a temporary problem and believing that trading has improved significantly in the final 2 months of the reporting period. So in the first paragraph, they have given the background of the company, right? So what now they are doing and what kind of a situation they are now. Right? In the second paragraph, the directors are concerned that the fall in operating cash flows may result in the breach of loan covenant and a drop in market confidence. They are also aware that a drop in operating profit will adversely affect the performance relating to the pay awarded to directors and senior management of World Tea. They therefore believe that it is in the best interest of a company and it is long-term health to make some adjustments to the draft financial statements. They have suggested to the financial controller, a chartered accountant, that she included a proportion of operating expenses as extraordinary item in the statement of profit or loss stated after the operating profit. Include a proportion of the profit generated from the sales of property, plant and equipment as a cash generated from operations in the statement of cash flow. All property, plant and equipment is used in World Tea operations. So what is the requirement? Explain the ethical responsibility of financial control in respect of directors' action. Right? So you have to write down. You need to follow the 4 steps I have mentioned. Right? So I will give you 10 minutes. Then you have to present your findings. Okay, it's got make a like adding that. I want 4 things, right? First one is you need to identify the issue, right? And what are the ethical steps? And what are the fundamental principles you are reaching? And how you are going to address this issue? What are the solutions you are suggesting?
performance using the but everybody self review academics can
Operating expenses as extraordinary items කියන්නේ ඒක ගැන වැඩි හිතන්නම ඒ කියන්නේ P&L එකේ operating profit එක calculate කරන්න නැතුව යටට දානවා කියලා right. Operating profit වලට include කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. දැන් මේ මේක.
Profit made payable.
ඔයාලා කියන තා ඒක නැත්තම් දැන් මේකට දෙන්නේ මේකම තමයි.
Combination. මේ solution තමයි මට තේරෙන්නේ. Make adjustment. Communicate the directors. Boy, බලපන් ඉතුරු ටිකක් කියලා බලපන් ඕකේ. ඕකේ ඉතුරු ටිකක් කියලා බලපන් ඊට උඹට තේරෙනවා. ඔබ දැන් යහාලට. Ada tuh media ada yang emission program ඒක පන්දන් නියමනේ ඩිරෙක්ටර් report එකට කියන්න බෑනේ බං ඔරෙන් ඉතින් ඊට වලින් අපි ගිහලා ඔඩිටර් කියන්න එහෙම and Sam reporting directors concerned
So any volunteers like to present to the colleagues? Any volunteers? So let's see. Any volunteers? Come. So we have one volunteer. Very good. Issue is enough. Not up.
The issue identifies falling cash flow may result in breach of loan converter and a drop in the market confidence, and also the making adjustments to draft financial statement. Ethical threats are self-interest and intimidation. Fundamental problems are integrity, structure, competency, and objective.
So you need to explain how it's right, how the ethical threats is right. So you mentioned what are the two ethical threats?
Self-interest and intimidation.
How is that right?
Self-interest, it mentions that the performance-related payout will be affected, which means at the end of the day, the auditor might also get affected, which causes self-interest, and since it comes from the directors, which makes intimidation basically. Fundamental problems is integrity, It's not honest and not straightforward. Professional competency and objective.
Computerized of the fundamental principles coming up.
So integrity is not being honest in business. Professional competency is basically not sticking into and the objective is that they don't follow it and they get bias. Steps to prevent it or to avoid it: address the directors on the issue directly, or to inform external auditors or the professional bodies. So for example, CA. Or the third option is to decline the request outside.
Thank you. Right. So as we mentioned, the first thing is we need to find out the issue. Right. So what is the issue here? Right. Because of the they said the trade actually declined, and also there is a financial difficulties coming up because there is a major customer, he has a financial difficulty, and therefore the profit is kind of a decline. There is a decline in the profit. So that is the issue. So you need to clearly mention the issue. Right. Major issue is there are financial statements showing a decline of profit. Right. That is the issue. Then next one is, as per our steps, next one is you need to identify the ethical threat. Right. Ethical threats. So when it comes to the ethical threats, as he correctly mentioned, the first ethical threats you are having is, if you are looking at this, you can find out very easily what is the threat? Intimidation. Right. That means directly is pushing the financial controller to do this. Right. Uplift the or up the profit. Right. So that is the intimidation threat. That means he is pushing you to do. Right. Intimidation threat is there. Then the next threat, actually we can't find from this case study. You need to think and get out of the case study. What is that? Tell interest rate. Why? So let's say if the financial controller, or let's say what is the name? Okay. So let's say financial controller. Financial controller agreed to adjust the financial statements. Right. It will create a tell interest rate. Why? Now our profit is actually declining, right? So if the profit is declining, if the finance controller is representing the senior management, right? Normally the senior management receive the bonuses from based on the profit, right? Based on the profit. So if the profit is declining, her bonus also decline. Because of that, he is making some adjustments. He is making some adjustments to the profit. Right? He is making some adjustments to profit. That is tell interest rate. Right? Clear? So that those are the two threats we can identify from this case study. So now we have identified the ethical threats. Then what are the fundamental principles we are reaching? The first one is, right, integrity. Obviously is there, right? If I'm as a financial controller, if I'm doing this work, it will breach my honesty, right? It is breaching my integrity. Objectivity, right? I'm biased, right? Because I want more bonuses, I'm doing this. I'm biased to this. I'm influenced by others to do this. I'm breaching the objectivity. Then the third one, it is actually hidden. If you can find out the third one, you will get the full mark. Third one, professional competency and duty. Why? Why it is generated? Why it is coming up? As we mentioned, there are two suggestions made by the director. Is telling that don't put these expenses in the P&L. Take out these expenses from the P&L. We call it as extraordinary items. It's in the LKS 1, right? In the LKS 1, it's clearly mentioned. You can't take out the expenses as extraordinary items from the P&L. That is there in the LKS 1. Right? So therefore, if you are taking out the extraordinary as a expenses as extraordinary items, you are breaching the LKS 1. And also he's suggesting you need to put the sales of property, plant and equipment as an operating activity. Actually, it is an investing activity. The cash flow, according to LKS 7, you need to categorize when you are selling property and equipment, property, plant and equipment, you need to categorize it under the investment activity. But Direct is suggesting you to show it under operating activity because he want to show the money, right? They have the money, right? So that is also reaching the LKS 7. So as a finance controller, I am following these orders. So then my fundamental principles I am reaching is professional competence. That means I don't know about the standards. I can't do with the standard. Based on the LKS 1, I can do the P&L thing. Based on the LKS 7, I can't do the cash flow thing, right? So that is what I am reaching. The fundamental principle what I am reaching is professional competence and duty. That is third one. Actually, it is hidden, right? අර දෙක ෆෝන් එක ගන්න බලලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. තුන්වෙනි එක ගන්න එක තමයි වැඩ කරන්නේ. Right? Hidden. Right? So now we know the issue, we know the threats, we know the principles. Then we need to suggest the solutions. Suggest the solution. So when you are suggesting solution, you can be smart, right? The first solution we can do. So we have discussed. First solution, you can illuminate the circumstances, right? In this case, what is the circumstances you can illuminate, which is arising this threat? You can talk with the directors and tell the directors that you can't do this, right? You can agree with the directors, right? If the directors are agreed with you, then all okay. Then your problem is solved. Right? The director agree with not make a current known action. Ethnic person threat and or issue given. That is the first step. If the directors are not agreeing with you, then you have to go with the safeguards, right? You have to go with the safeguards. What are the safeguards? We have discussed two: legal safeguards and also company safeguards. For example, when it comes to legal safeguards, you can tell to the CS Srilanka that this one I have to do because of these things, right? And also company safeguards, you have the internal controls. If you are doing this, then the employee oversight system will find out this issue, right? Right. So that is the two safeguards you can follow. That is the second step. So either safeguard, either elimination of circumstances will not workable. Then third point, what you can do, you can reduce the risk they have allocated, or you can decline the provision. Right? You can decline the provision. Right? What one may wedding agreement, that full provision finance control question. So that is the third solution. So it is how you have to construct your answer, right? When it comes to the exam, right? So I suppose in your examination, you will follow these steps, right? දැන් අර පළවෙනි දවසේ ඉඳලා සති 17 වෙනි සතියේදී මේක අමතක වෙලා වෙන ඒවා ලියන්න එපා. ඒක ලකුණු නැහැ. ඉෂුව එක විතරක් ලියන්න එපා. දැන් ස්ට්‍රක්චර් එක තේරුණානේ. Right. So I have another classroom discussion. Don't worry, I will not take it forward, right? So you have to write the answer for that classroom discussion, right? I will make a notebook available, right? So you can write and drop your answers to the element, right? All right. Any questions? Any other questions? I know you don't have any questions. That is very good, right? So okay. So next thing, and also another one. I have I got a request from the. I think there are two badges, right? Don't talk. Huh? There are two badges. Yeah. One badge is asking me to. They are having 8-member group, right? So then all together we are having 100 students. As per the attendance. So if I take 5-member group, it is very difficult to do. Right? 20 groups, no. Right? So therefore, I will make it to 10. Right? I will make it to 10 or 8. Right? Either 10 or 8. Right? Not more than 10. Right? You can stick with 8 or 10. Right? All right. Okay, then. So thank you very much for joining and have a good day.